Welcome to the Wicked Psychology Hangout live stream. Hope everyone is having a great start to the week. How are you, Aline and BC Proud? Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic morning and afternoon. We are going to watch the Travis Reinking trial this week. Travis walked in, a quick summary, one sentence summary of what happened is Travis walked into a Waffle House and shot 8 people, killing 4. So we're calling it the Waffle House Massacre. It's absolutely horrific. And we are going to start today with the opening statements.
No one was expecting it. None of the 22 people that were in the path of Travis Reinking at the Waffle House at 3571 Murfreesboro Road, none of those 22 people were expecting the mayhem and destruction that Travis Reinking had planned for them. Now, about 10-15 minutes earlier at that Waffle House, there weren't near as many people. There were only 10 people inside just a few minutes before. That Waffle House location was actually new. There was another Waffle House further down Murfreesboro Road that was always extremely busy. Several of those 22 people actually went to that Waffle House first and decided to go to this new location. And in those early hours of 3 a.m. on that Saturday night, early Sunday morning, April 22nd, 2018, there were only 6 customers that had been in the Waffle House. There was a couple, Lawrence Wells and his girlfriend, Amaya Harris. They're sitting on the far side of the restaurant. This Waffle House was set up just like every other Waffle House. You walked in, there's a long counter with a bar. To the right, there are 3 booths and the bathrooms. You go to the left, there are 3 booths, and then you could go behind the counter where the cooks and the employees would be. So Lawrence Wells and Amaya Harris, they're over on the left near that kitchen entrance. There's a booth right next to them, a married couple, Brittany and Matthew Cordova. They're sitting there. And all the way across the restaurant, there are 2 friends that are sitting together, Trayvon and Garth, Mike Garth. They're there just having a good time with their friends and loved ones. And in those early morning hours, more people start to arrive. Aquila De Silva, him and his older brother, Abede De Silva, they show up. They're with their girlfriends. They had been out that night. Aquila is with his girlfriend, Shantia Wagner. Abede is with his girlfriend, Alexis Lane. And Abede will testify as well as Shantia, and they'll tell you that they actually were tired. They had been out that night. They were tired. They were hungry. They just stopped to get some food because they were ready to go home. And actually, Shantia Wagner will testify, and she'll tell you that she didn't even want to go inside. She was so tired. But she had actually never eaten at a Waffle House before. And so she didn't know what was on the menu, and they said, come inside and find something to order on the menu. The 4 of them, they sat in chairs with their backs to the parking lot as they were waiting for their food. D'Ebony Groves and her best friend, Sharita Henderson. Sharita was actually older than D'Ebony. They were like sisters. They were actual sorority sisters, but they were so close that they were like sisters. The 2 of them show up, they walk in, they actually go to the bathroom first, but then they sit in that first booth, kind of right by the front door. The 2 of them, they've been having fun. There were sorority events that whole weekend, and they're making jokes. And Sharita Henderson will testify, and she'll tell you that they were actually singing Jesus Loves Me as they sat down and were looking at the menus. That was just something that they did. DeMarcus Wiggins, he comes in out of the parking lot, and he's standing there by the jukebox waiting to order because now it's really getting busy. You'll also hear from Kayla Shaw. She was there with her 2 cousins, Chelsea Owens and Alexis Peebles. Alexis and Chelsea, they stayed in the car because, again, at this point, they're tired. They just want to get some food because everybody's kind of ready to go home, but they were hungry. And they sent Kayla Shaw in to pick up their to-go order. You will see Kayla standing there.
Aw, BC Proud, super excited to welcome you into the official Wicked fam. I super infinitely appreciate your membership. It truly, truly does mean a lot. Thank you so, so, so much.
She's wearing a pink shirt. She's standing right there at the bar. And she's standing there just waiting for her food. And then you will see there are 5 employees that were working that night. Douglas Lauderdale, Wanda White, Virginia Stanley, and there are 2 cooks, Michael Shaw and Torian Sonderland. You'll see a moment where Torian, he goes to walk out to take his smoke break. And I think it's right before Torian walks around, you'll see Amaya Harris get up from her table. And she walks to the bathroom. Travis Reinking arrives at 3:19. 3:19 and 30 seconds, he pulls into that back entrance and drives into the parking lot. He's already there. When Travis Reinking pulls in, he doesn't park in just any spot. He parks right at the front. He parks in a handicap spot right at the front door where he has a view of everything. 2 walls of the Waffle House are floor-to-ceiling windows, so he can see everything. He sees that moment when Amaya walks to the bathroom. He sees Torian walking. Now he sits and parks in that front handicap parking spot, and you'll see Brennan McMurray pull in his white Jeep. You'll see his friend James Shaw Jr. pull in his red truck. They park, they get out of the car, and again, they're friends, they're together, they're having fun, they're cracking jokes as they're walking into the Waffle House. And they see Travis Reinking in the truck sitting there before they go in. The 2 of them come in and they're seated at the bar. You'll see Amaya walk right past them, and you'll see Torian walk out the front door to take his smoke break. And James Shaw Jr. and Brennan Murray will tell you that they were just having a good time. They saw Michael Shaw, the other cook, he kept stacking plates up on a shelf, and he was stacking them so high that they were joking because they thought that they were going to fall. And it's at that moment that outside, that another person that wasn't planning to be there that night, Joe Perez Jr., 20 years old. He's from Texas. He had only been in Nashville for 4 months. And he wasn't there to eat. He wasn't there to have fun. Something was actually wrong with one of his tires. And he pulled in and pulls in right by the Waffle House sign. And he's outside of his car trying to figure out what's going on with his car. And it's right at 3:23 and 50 seconds that Joe Perez Jr. goes to walk into the Waffle House. And as he walks by Travis Reinking's car, you will see Travis Reinking grab an assault rifle out of the front seat of his truck, and he immediately points it at Joe Perez Jr. He fires at him multiple times, no hesitation at all. He strikes him 4 times. One of them strikes Joe in the neck, the left side. One strikes him in the left back, one in the right shoulder. And the 4th strike is a devastating head injury that shatters his skull. You will see surveillance video and you will see that Joe Perez Jr., he immediately falls to the ground. Immediately. unable to move. And you will see Travis Reinking fire another round at his body on the ground. Travis Reinking does not hesitate 1 second. He takes the rifle, and Torian Sonderland, who actually has begun to run towards Travis Reinking, he aims and begins shooting directly at him. Torian quickly changes course and runs down the sidewalk away from him, running for his life. But he doesn't make it. He is struck 7 times. 7 times, twice in the chest. You will hear from the medical examiner in this case, and he will describe to you that one of the gunshot wounds to Torian's chest had stippling, which indicates he was in close proximity, as if he is running towards the shooter. But that all of his injuries, 2 gunshot wounds to the chest, 2 to the back, he's struck in his thigh, he's also struck in the neck, and again, he is struck in the head with a devastating gunshot wound to the head, and he immediately falls to the ground. 7 gunshot wounds. Travis Reinking fired 15 rounds in 19 seconds outside. And again, he does not hesitate. He immediately goes inside. Immediately. You will see it 3:23 and 52 seconds. You will see one of the bullets strikes the window in the front of the Waffle House. Kayla Shaw, the girl in the pink shirt who's standing there at the counter, you will see the glass shatter and come straight at her face. That is the moment where everyone runs for cover. Aquila Da Silva and Chantia Wagner, they run to the left where the booths are, towards the kitchen. His brother Abede and Alexis Lane, they run to the right. James Brennan, Michael Shaw, James Brennan and James Shaw, Mike Garth and Trayvon, they all run into the bathrooms where Amaya is. Travis Reinking, when he walks in that door, Kayla has literally dropped to the floor, injuring her side at the moment that glass blew in. She is laying with her face towards the counter, and she is playing dead. Travis Reinking does not go to the left. Go to the left around the counter where the employees would be. He does not go that way. He does fire that direction as he sees Aquila and Chantia Wagner scrambling on the ground, running for cover, trying to get under a booth around something to get away from him. He sees them and he fires at them both and strikes both of them, but he does not go left. He doesn't go to where the employees would be. Travis Reinking immediately goes to the first booth where the customers are. He goes to Sharita Henderson. He goes to D'Ebony Groves. These 2 girls, they drop to the ground. They're hiding under the table, lying on the floor. And Sharita Henderson will testify, and she will tell you that she looked him in the eye. He looked right at her, and he fired at her and shot her. And she was trying to cover her friend, but that was not possible. There is not room for that to happen. Sharita is struck 3 times, and her friend D'Ebony is struck twice. And Travis Reinking makes a choice. He does not stop. Travis Reinking then turns to the right. He's headed to the bathrooms. This is a dead end. There is no space there. There are 7 people who are cowering and they have nowhere to go. He does not pause 1 second after he has shot Sharita, shot DeEbony. He immediately fires into that area, and you'll see the bullet hole in the glass in that door. And you will hear from James Shaw Jr. He will tell you that he is on the other side of that door and that he hears the whistle of a bullet that goes by him. He's actually struck in his arm. But then he hears a pause. And he's looking out that small window. He hears that pause. He looks and he sees that Travis Reinking has pointed the rifle down. James Shaw Jr. in that moment, he makes a decision to take that opportunity, to take that one moment opportunity and seize it. And he uses the full force of his body and he forces himself through that door, forces himself into Travis Reinking, knocking him back. And James Shaw Jr., he grabs a hold of that rifle, even though it burns his hand because the barrel is hot. And he does not let go. He struggles and wrestles with Travis Reinking. He pushes him back and he overpowers him. He grabs that rifle and throws it over the kitchen counter as far away from Travis Reinking as he can. And he doesn't stop there. He continues to wrestle with Travis Reinking and manhandle him to get him out of that Waffle House. And he is able to push him out the door. And you'll see that as he's pushing him out the door, that Travis Reinking starts to come out of the green jacket that he has on. The two of them struggle together until they get to the corner of the Waffle House. James Shaw Jr. goes right back behind the Waffle House, and Travis Reinking runs the other direction. The other direction, which just happens to be in the direction where he lives. You'll see that James Shaw Jr. run, and then he stops, and he goes back. You'll see him get into his truck, and he actually drives and pulls up right in front of the Waffle House. And you'll see him standing there with his door open, because at that point, no one really knows where he is or if he's coming back. And he'll testify and tell you that he starts yelling his friend's name. Brennan McMurray, his friend's nickname is BJ, and he's yelling for BJ. You'll hear from Abede Da Silva. He was in the bathroom with those 7 people. He comes out and he first goes outside, and then he sees his little brother, Akila, inside. So he runs back in. And he sees Shantia Wagner, his brother's girlfriend, and she's screaming and she's bleeding. She has a devastating gunshot wound to her right leg. There is literally nothing holding her leg together from her ankle to her knee except for a small strip of skin. He finds his brother, Akila, who is still breathing. He's still talking. He has been calling for his name. And he sees that he has a gunshot wound to his right shoulder. And he's trying to figure out what to do, not understanding that what he doesn't see is that Akila also has a gunshot wound to his right side. And that gunshot has perforated his lung. Abede will describe that at some point his brother Akila could not talk anymore. And the last thing that he said is, "I can't breathe." Dr. Deering will testify and he will explain to you about the injuries that Akila suffered and that his lungs would have been filling up with blood and he would not have been able to breathe. Now, Akila De Silva was transported to the hospital, Abede having no idea how serious his injuries were. But even the life-saving efforts of the doctors, he was pronounced deceased at the hospital. Shantia Wagner, she will describe that devastating gunshot wound to her leg, that she is bleeding. She'll explain that she initially called 911, but the operator just kept asking her for the address, which she didn't know, and she got frustrated, and she decided to call her mom. And she'll describe that excruciating pain that she was in. She'll describe looking at her leg that wasn't there. She'll describe that she got transported to the hospital, and it was actually several days later before she even learned that her boyfriend Akila had not survived. And she'll describe to you the months that she was in the hospital, that even today, what she goes through with treatment. And she'll describe that process that the doctors basically had to rebuild a leg for her. Her injury was so devastating, the doctors had to call in a military specialist that was used to dealing with people with IED injuries because it was as if she had stepped on a bomb. You will also hear from Sharita Henderson. She will tell you about lying on that floor. She will tell you about her gunshot wounds. She was also shot in the leg. Her leg was half blown off, breaking both bones in her lower leg. She was also shot in her upper forearm with the bullet exiting out the other side. You will see her scars. Dr. Deering will testify and explain to you what damage this type of high velocity injury does to the human body, but you will actually be able to see it on Sharita's arm. That she's also shot in her right arm near her bicep, and that bullet goes into her chest. And as she's lying there on the floor next to her friend Diebony, who she knows is not alive, that at one point she actually calls out, "I'm not dead," because she knows that anyone that saw her would not know that. You will hear from the first responding officers who responded to the scene the devastation that they found when they got there. You will hear that after they were able to treat all of the victims from inside, that they located Mr. Reinking's truck because it was still parked there in that parking spot. And they were able to determine his address that was very close by. They went to his apartment and they learned about Mr. Reinking, that he had just moved to the Antioch area a couple months before in February is when he got that apartment. He was a 29-year-old crane operator from Illinois. They learned that he didn't have many friends. He was a loner. He had a family, but didn't have much contact with them. In the apartment, they learned that not only the gun that was used at the Waffle House, but that he owned 3 other guns. They found 2 of them, both bolt-action rifles, both incapable of firing 30 rounds within 29 seconds. And they found a case to a 4th gun, a Kimber .45 caliber handgun. They found the case, but no gun. Now, during all of this, the ID officers that respond to the actual crime scene, they immediately find the green jacket that Travis Reinking's wearing. It's right there at that intersection right where you see him on the video run towards. And in the pockets of that green jacket are 2 additional magazines to the Bushmaster's XM15 assault rifle that Travis Reinking chose to take to the Waffle House that day. Both of those magazines were fully loaded with 30 rounds of hollow point ammunition. The detectives will tell you that they found a 3rd magazine in Travis Reinking's bathroom, that there was some blood on the floor. They also found an empty box of .223 hollow point ammunition in his apartment. They also found his iPhone. That was left there, not taken. You will also hear about the law enforcement response to this incident. Sergeant Polk will describe to you the enormous resources that were employed in an attempt to locate Travis Reinking, who ran from this crime scene. He was not at his apartment. There's a .45 caliber handgun missing, so he was assumed to be armed and dangerous. And he will tell you about the resources from the Metro Nashville Police Department, but not just the Metro Nashville Police Department, that they had assistance from pretty much every agency that exists, from the TBI, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF. There were Secret Service assisting. There were other local law enforcement outside of the county that were assisting, that they gave a media release to the public with information of be on the lookout for this person. There are hundreds and hundreds of law enforcement officers looking for Travis Reinking, along with the public is looking for him. They are having to shut down schools and put them on lockdown, and they are searching everywhere. There are wooded areas by that Waffle House, and they are searching everywhere. And you will hear that Travis Reinking was able to evade them for almost 34 hours. Now, when Travis Reinking showed up to that Waffle House, he chose not to wear any clothing other than that green jacket that carried the 2 additional magazines, the 60 additional rounds. He fired 30 rounds at the Waffle House, 15 outside, 15 inside. That moment that James Shaw Jr. was able to seize, he was out of ammunition. The empty clip is right there where James Shaw Jr. struggled that rifle away from him. That green jacket held his 60 more rounds. But when officers ultimately located him, Officer Kyle Williams will describe to you that they were in the woods. They got a tip from a citizen that they thought that they saw the person. And he's in the woods, he hears crunching. The team has separated so that they can try to determine if this person is the suspect they're looking for. They will describe to you that in those scenarios that they have a code word that they say, so they can call out the code word. And if they are going to encounter somebody else on the team, they would know that it's someone from their team instead of the suspect. So he calls out the code word and there's no response. And then he sees Travis Reinking behind a tree. And he has his firearm pulled on him and he tells him to come out. And he'll describe that Travis Reinking made a motion with his arm, but he came out behind that tree and he put his hands up just as Officer Williams had directed him. He told him to put his hands up and to get down on the ground. And Travis Reinking did exactly what he said. Officer Williams will tell you that he directed him that if you move, I will shoot you. And Travis Reinking responded, I won't. When Officer Williams found Travis Reinking, he was dressed. He had on a t-shirt, jeans, shoes, and he had a backpack on. And you'll hear from the officers that located him that they first put him in cuffs, even with the backpack on. They found his wallet and his ID that was on him. In his pocket, he also had a loaded .45 caliber clip to the .45 caliber Kimber firearm. They cut the backpack off of him, and inside that backpack, they immediately see that Kimber firearm. It is loaded with a full clip. There is a round in the chamber. It is ready to fire. Also in that backpack is a holster for that gun, a flashlight, a multi-tool, several bottles of water, and there's also 10 silver bars in that backpack. You will hear testimony during this trial that those 10 silver bars were purchased on April 10th of 2018, and they were picked up at Nashville Coin and Currency in Brentwood on April 20th of 2018. The detective's investigation will also reveal that Travis Reinking purchased those magazines in those days before this shooting. Those 3 magazines to fit his Bushmaster's XM15, the one that's on the bathroom countertop and the 2 that were in his jacket. Those 3 were new. You will also hear that they located a BMW key fob to a BMW X6 that had been stolen from the Brentwood BMW dealership on April 17th, and that they learned that that vehicle had been recovered from his apartment complex. The detectives that were involved in his apprehension will testify, and there were several that were involved in transporting him. They will testify and describe to you his demeanor, how he was acting. And they will describe that he was calm. Officer Williams will say, the very first person to encounter him, will describe that he was calm and resigned. Ladies and gentlemen, the proof in this case and the evidence that will be presented to you is that Travis Reinking made a choice. He made several choices that led to the shooting. He decided what time to go. He went on a Saturday night at 3:20 a.m. to a Waffle House when it would be at its busiest. He chose not to wear clothes other than a green jacket. He made that choice. He chose which of his 4 firearms to take with him. Chose the one that had the highest capacity magazine. He chose to buy additional magazines for that weapon, and he chose to take 90 rounds of ammunition. He chose that parking spot where he could see everything. He chose to fire upon Joe Perez Jr., someone who wasn't inside the Waffle House, who was parked in a parking spot. He chose to fire upon him first. He chose to fire upon Torian Sonderland as he ran away from him. And he made a very specific choice to not go to the left, not go to where the Waffle House employees would be. He chose to go to the right, where the customers were. He chose to go to where there were 7 more people. He chose not to stop. The evidence presented to you during this trial will be that Travis Reinking went there to take something that couldn't be given back. He went there to take lives. The evidence will be that this was an act of revenge done out of anger. The evidence will be that Travis Reinking took Joe Perez Jr.'s life in an act of revenge, that Travis Reinking took Torian Sonderland's life in an act of revenge. He took Aquila De Silva's life in an act of revenge. He took Ebony Grove's life in an act of revenge. Their families cannot get them back. And Travis Reinking did this to punish them. And at the end of all of the proof, we will ask that you return a verdict that he is guilty of all 16 counts of the indictment.
How long is it going to take? I'm not trying to rush you. I'm just trying to figure out a mid-morning break.
I don't have time, Your Honor, but I don't anticipate too long.
All right. Let's get that. Try and get it in.
You've got a difficult job, and you're just starting it. And you've heard a lot of information in the opening statement made by the state this morning. And we can agree that it's tragic. It's tragic all around. And I want to say on the front end that nothing we say on our defense team is ever going to be intended to be offensive to the families of the victims in this case. What you're going to see during the state's case in chief from the defense may seem awkward because we don't contest what happened at the Waffle House. So if you don't see us getting up and doing a lot of cross-examination of witnesses, there's a reason for that. You're going to be able to see what happened at the Waffle House with your own eyes. I anticipate the state, as they've indicated, are going to show you videos. They're going to have eyewitness accounts. But that's not the only part of the story that's important. And as a jury in this case, it's important that you're able to understand the entire picture. Because when you sit in judgment of Mr. Reinking and the facts in this case and you apply it to the law of this case, you have to understand Mr. Reinking. It's the oath you took. It doesn't stop with what happened at the Waffle House, and it doesn't start with what happened at the Waffle House. What the proof is going to show in this case is that Travis Reinking is severely mentally ill. He's schizophrenic. And he's battled this for years. And you're going to hear expert testimony to talk about a 3 to 5 year period leading up to that night. You're going to hear that Mr. Reinking was driven by delusions, paranoid thinking, auditory hallucinations. One of those delusions you're going to hear about began with a Taylor Swift concert, where he believed that Taylor Swift was talking directly to him. And that he went on to believe he was in a relationship with Taylor Swift, that he was her real boyfriend, that he was communicating with her, and she communicating with him. And over time, you're going to hear about how that delusion grew and grew to where then it turns almost violent in his mind, that she's after him, that she's breaking in his house, that she's sexually assaulting him, that others are involved, that the government is involved. You're going to hear that Mr. Reinking was so convinced of this delusional thinking over years of time that he himself was reaching out to law enforcement, asking for help. People are coming in my home. They're breaking in my house. They're stealing my thoughts. When I go into restaurants, people are repeating phrases they would only know if they had read my private journals and my private thoughts. He believed it. He believed it wholeheartedly. He believed it so much, he went to Washington, D.C., thinking that he could get an audience with the President of the United States and get it to stop because he believed the government was involved. And this delusional thinking really rolled into him believing that Taylor Swift herself was a government agent. When he couldn't get relief in his hometown of Illinois, he moved. He moved because he thought if he moved, it would make it stop. What he talked about is the psychological rape, it would stop. The harassment, it would stop. So he moves. He moves several times. You're going to hear testimony that at one point, earlier on, his family tries to get him some help. It doesn't take. He moves again. He ends up in Nashville. By that time, when he's in Nashville, he is completely untethered from reality. And he is driven by his delusion that people are after him. You're going to hear testimony that Mr. Reinking believed that he could communicate with aliens and was regularly communicating with aliens. That Mr. Reinking believed he could speak directly and to God. That he believed that normal people walking around, his reality was those people. And there was no rhyme or reason that you could put logic to. Those people were out to hurt him and had been hurting him and were continuing to hurt him. And so on the night of April 22nd, 2018, you're going to hear that Mr. Reinking believed he was commanded by God to go to the Waffle House in defense of himself and other people. That the people at the Waffle House, in his mind, were government agents. That were responsible for all the torment that he was perceiving over those years. You heard talk about what he was wearing or what he wasn't wearing. He was naked except for a green jacket. Not a trench coat, not a long jacket, a waist-length green jacket. Completely naked. No shoes, no socks, no nothing. green jacket, magazines, assault rifle. Why? You're going to hear proof because that's what God said. God told him to do it that way. And that's what caused him to go. You're going to hear proof that he believed because they were watching his every move, that he was speaking about going to the Waffle House audibly in his apartment before he went. In his mind saying, I've been ordered by God to do this, but I'm saying this out loud and maybe people won't be there because they'll hear me talk because they're listening. They'll hear me talk. And that will cause it to maybe even be closed. Now, that's not rational thought. But that was his reality. When we talk about choices, when you hear the district attorney say choices and choices and choices, what are choices based on? Perception. They're based on perception. What did he perceive? It's not rational. He wasn't in any sort of rational state of mind. But his choices led him to that Waffle House under those strict orders that he perceived to be from God. And he pulls into the parking lot. And you're going to hear proof that even in that moment, he is looking for a sign. He's not sitting outside trying to wait for max capacity in the Waffle House. He's waiting for a sign. Maybe if there's a sign, I was wrong. Maybe I won't have to do it. But God's told me to do it. And again, in his sickness, his severe mental illness, he sees the number 3 on a hat. What he perceives as walking by his car. It's described by the district attorney as a gentleman walking by the car right before Mr. Reinking gets out. And in his mind, that's the sign from God, because in his mind, his terribly ill, severe mental illness, schizophrenic mind, 3 has meaning. And that's his sign. That's his sign. What you're going to hear in this case is that Mr. Reinking's actions that night, they were a direct result of the delusions he was suffering because of his schizophrenia. He believed that God told him to do that. He believed that the people in that Waffle House were government agents. When you're thinking about choices, when you're considering this case, you have to consider the perception of that person. And we believe that when you do that, and at the conclusion of this case, you will be clearly convinced that Mr. Reinking suffered from a severe mental illness and that he was insane at the time of these shootings. And you will render a verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity. Thank you.
Alrighty. So that is the opening statements for this case. One thing that I was going to add is that one thing that I picked out was that Travis had grand illusions well beyond him, right? Like the Taylor Swift relationship and the hopes he had with the president. However, he ended up going to a Waffle House and committing the crime. You know, I believe it's due to knowing the accessibility and ease that he would have bringing a weapon into a situation like that versus if he had orders from God surrounding the president or Taylor Swift, right? Like, you can't just walk into a concert or anything like that to act, right? Or the Oval Office. So it's no accident that his supposed delusions were brought down to a more obtainable level when he claims to have been told to act violently in those situations. So I just found that to be a really interesting tidbit of the contrast in these huge illusions so beyond him, and then, when it's time to act in such a way, they're just brought back down to more a reality that he can achieve, if you will, his horrible goals, it seems. So now we're going to look at the testimony of an officer that showed up on site, on the scene. So we'll hear from him on the gruesomeness that he encountered.
First name Brett, last name Johns.
All right. Officer Johns, how long have you been a police officer?
Approximately 6.5 years.
Okay. Have you always worked with the Metro Nashville Police Department?
Yes, sir.
All right. And in what is your current assignment?
I work at West Community Field Intelligence Team as a detective.
Okay. So Detective Johns.
Yes, sir.
Forgive me.
It's okay.
And in April of 2018, what was your assignment at the time?
I was working C detail at Hermitage Precinct. My zone was 535 zone. I was a zone officer.
What is C detail?
C detail hours are from 10:30 at night to 7 in the morning.
And you said your zone was what?
535 zone. So it was like Murfreesboro, Nashboro, the area that shares the border with South Precinct and Hermitage Precinct.
Okay. And at the time, what was a normal shift like for you back in 2018?
A shift as a normal police officer is very different. Just depends on the type of calls that come in that night. You can range from just doing traffic stops or looking for people that have warrants to answering numerous calls to call, or going to high priority calls such as shootings or robberies, break-ins, home invasions, anything of that aspect.
Okay. And are you ever dispatched to calls?
Yes, sir.
And what does that mean?
So when you're dispatched to a call comes into our dispatch, which is a separate entity than the police department. When they receive the call, they call for a radio sign on the radio. So my call sign was 535. They would raise me, they would say 535, I would answer, and they would read out the call text of a call that they needed me to respond to. So if it was a domestic related, it would be we coded as a 41. They would let me know the terms of whoever called in, what they're describing to dispatch, so that I can have some kind of knowledge prior to going to the call.
How do you receive a dispatch?
Every officer has a portable radio on their belt. Now they have outside vest carriers. We have a portable radio with a handheld mic that comes up. It depends on how the officer wears it. I wear mine over my shoulder that comes right here. But currently I'm in our Class A uniform, so I'm not wearing my mic.
Okay. And so you're able to hear it from the radio there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and where do you speak into?
Where do I speak into?
Yeah.
Into the handheld mic right here.
At some point on April 22nd, 2018, did you receive a dispatch to respond to a Waffle House?
Yes, sir.
And about what time did you receive that dispatch?
Roughly around 3:20 in the morning.
Okay. And where were you?
When the call came out, I was at Murfreesboro and Nashboro on a vehicle accident with another officer.
Okay, you say Murfreesboro, is that Murfreesboro Pike?
Murfreesboro and Nashboro Boulevard.
Okay. Is that in the Antioch area?
Yes.
All right. And what did you do in response to receiving the dispatch?
I was dispatched to a 52, which is a shooting. Originally, the address, they believed it was on Spence and Murfreesboro, which was the opposite direction of the actual Waffle House that had the shooting. I proceeded to head northbound, which is inbound on Murfreesboro, towards that Waffle House, when dispatch received more information that it was not that Waffle House. At that time, I proceeded to pull a U-turn in the middle of the road, and the entire time I'm responding on driving lights and sirens, which is emergency code 3 for us. I turn around in the middle of the road, and I proceed to head towards the correct direction. However, there was no address listed at the time because it was a brand new Waffle House. So we didn't have a physical address, but because it was a high priority call, a South officer that was familiar with the area was able to tell me roughly about where it was.
What is a high priority call?
High priority calls are code 3 calls, which we go lights and sirens. So there's going to be 52s, like bank robberies. 52s are shootings, bank robberies, anything where life is in danger. We're going to go lights and sirens to these calls.
Okay. How often have you had to respond to a code 52?
I've been on numerous shootings throughout my career. I would say that this shooting at the Waffle House is to a different extent, caliber of injuries to the people that were there. I've seen, people shot in the legs and arms and stuff like that survived, but the Waffle House was definitely more gruesome and deadly.
Okay. Were you alone in your police vehicle?
Yes, sir. We ride single in our own patrol cars. Unless we're have some kind of cars that have mechanical malfunctions, we Metro Police ride single units.
And about how long did it take you to arrive?
Roughly maybe, guess estimate, 10 minutes or so.
About 10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So what, if anything, did you do when you got to the Waffle House?
When I got close to the Waffle House, due to not being familiar with the area, I turned off my siren but kept my lights on. And I was trying to see if I could hear any gunshots because I did not know if Mr. Reinking was still inside, actively shooting at the victims inside. And it was a new construction area, so I didn't know exactly where I was at. As I approached, I had my lights still on, and I observed the Waffle House out my passenger window to my right. I proceeded to drive into the parking lot, and it was very quiet. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear any screaming. I didn't see anybody running. And then I came around the corner to the front of the Waffle House and exited my vehicle.
Okay. And were you approached by anyone as you pulled in?
Yes. When I exited my vehicle, it was dark, and I observed a male limping coming directly towards me. I didn't have my weapon drawn at the time, and I didn't know he was approaching me, but I could tell he was injured. He began to approach me, and I heard him say, I fought him. And then at the time I was able to speak with Mr. Shaw, and he said, I fought him. And I said, I need to know what he looks like. And Mr. Shaw was very distraught and emotional, and it was hard at first to try to get him to give me a description. He just kept saying he was naked, and I had to guide him and say, I need to know what he looks like. I need you to try to remember something else besides him being naked. And then he said a green jacket, and he said blonde hair, male white.
Okay. Was he able to tell you where the shooter was?
He said he ran on foot outbound Murfreesboro, so that's away from downtown, which is south.
Did you relay that information over your radio?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. After getting a description of the shooter from Mr. Shaw, what did you do after that?
After the description, I began to walk towards the front door of the Waffle House. I immediately observed a male Hispanic. He was laying on his side, and I think I touched him or tried to kneel down to see if he was alive or not, and he was shot. He had an obvious shot to the head, and there was blood, and then you could see his brain, and you could tell that he was obviously deceased. I proceeded to walk past him and observed a male black laying on his stomach, large amount of blood around his head, and I could tell he was deceased at the time. And I got on the radio and advised that I had code 3 and 4 injuries. Yeah, thank you. And I relayed that, and I said I need Code 3 to 4 injuries, and I need more people out here.
What?
Code 3 to 4 injuries is code 3 is very critical injuries, life-threatening injuries. Code 4 means that they're deceased.
Okay. So based on what you saw as you approached the Waffle House,
Yes.
could you tell that those two individuals appeared to be deceased to you?
Yes, sir. And I observed the windows to the Waffle House had some damage approaching. And that's when I entered the Waffle House after relaying the information of the two deceased people outside of the Waffle House.
Officer Johns, you testified that you responded to a bunch of shootings before.
Yes.
What about what you saw made you kind of emotional right here as you testify today?
Their extent of their injuries, the people that I dealt with inside, conversations that I had with people that didn't make it. I think about it quite often. Yeah.
As you went inside the Waffle House, what did you do, or what did you see?
When I walked inside the Waffle House, there was two female blacks. When you walk in directly, there was a booth kind of to the left. Large amount of blood underneath the table. Sorry. Okay, the two female blacks underneath the table. One, she was deceased. She was underneath the table, a large amount of blood. She was in a very unnatural position. It wasn't like she was trying to hide. It was apparent that she had no control over her body in the way that she was underneath the table. I knew at that time that she was deceased. And the other female black, I thought she was deceased at first. She was slouched down, so the seat's like this and the table's kind of up. She fell down and was sitting on her butt and was slouching and was looking up and was not moving. And I thought she was deceased, but then I heard a loud gasp come from her. And I didn't know if that was her body trying to wake her up. When people pass away, their brain, if it's still functioning, will try to wake them up. And I approached her and she blinked. And I didn't know if she was responsive or not. So I was trying to talk to her and she wasn't answering any questions. And I said, I need you to blink if you understand me. And then she blinked. So I knew that she was still alive. I was really concerned about her because she was unable to move and was not very responsive. So she kind of drew a lot of my attention. I began to talk to her, and due to her not being able to physically say any words to me, we had a actual officer at Metro that got shot, and she comes to our academy and speaks to us. And she said when she got shot, she counted to 10 to keep her brain active. And it's the first thing I could think about was try to get her to count to stay alive. Yeah.
So you asked her to count to 10?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And was she able to do that?
She would say 1, 2, but she could never really make it up to 10. I had another individual there. I asked him to keep in conversation, keep her engaged, so I could get her to, try to fight to stay alive.
Other than trying to talk her through to survive, mm-hmm. What other aid, if any, did you provide to her?
There was towels. I remember asking a worker at the Waffle House for towels if they had anything to put pressure on the wounds, and one of the workers there was able to put towels on the counter. I grabbed some towels and I threw them to Mr. Silva's brother, because prior to that he told me there was 2 people on his side of the Waffle House that were injured, one to the arm and one to the leg.
What side of the Waffle House would that have been?
When you're facing the Waffle House, the first 2 were initially by the door, and then you go down the counter and it's like an L shaped, and then Mr. Silva and his fiance were on the left, in the left corner of the Waffle House.
Okay. And you said that there was someone that you threw some towels to? Who was that?
Yes, I threw that to Mr. Silva's brother.
Okay. And what was he doing with the brother? What was Mr. Silva's
Mr.
brother?
Silva was telling me that there was 2 people injured on his side and that he was his brother. He was concerned about his brother and his fiance, and I said, can you render aid to them until I can get more officers and EMS, which is our emergency medical services and fire department, out there to perform life-saving efforts.
Okay. As you were rendering aid to the first female and Mr. De Silva was rendering aid to the other 2 individuals, did anyone else, any other police officers or paramedics come into the Waffle House?
Yes, the second officer that responded is a canine officer, Officer Gilpin. He, while I was rendering aid to the first female black, he approached me and said, do you need a tourniquet? And I advised him I did not need a tourniquet at this time to go check on De Silva and his fiance on the left side because I didn't know their extent of the injuries. At that time, he proceeded to the left, and I think very shortly after the fire department came in, and that's when I moved over to De Silva's side to render aid.
Who did the fire department or the paramedics take first?
They ended up taking Mr. De Silva first.
Okay.
We didn't know the extent of his injuries until the fire department got there. He obviously had a gunshot wound to his right arm. It appeared to be an exit wound. We cut his pants and cut his shirt and observed a small entry wound to his chest. And that's when the EMS decided that he had to go first, that his injuries were going to be pretty extensive.
Was Mr. De Silva alert or awake?
He was alert. I spoke with him, and he kept saying, it hurts, my arm hurts. And I even told his brother, I was like, he's talking. And I said, I know it hurts, but it hurts means that you're alive and you're aware that, that something's going on. I need you to stay awake for me and stay alert. And then he was loaded on the gurney to take out to the ambulance.
Okay. And when the first female, that you were tending to, when, if at all, did a paramedic come to provide her assistance?
There was 2 ambulances that I think that arrived at the exact same time. So when we were dealing with De Silva, they began to pull her out from underneath, and she let out a very grueling and screeching scream when they were pulling her out from underneath that table. And I believe that she was the second one to be transported.
What were her injuries?
The injuries that I observed on her was a gunshot wound to her arm and her leg, and I couldn't tell if she was struck anywhere else. She wasn't bleeding extensively or heavily or anything like that, but I was very concerned about her because she was having a hard time of staying awake and conscious.
Were you able to see any entrance and or exit wounds to her arm?
Yes. There was one probably about maybe forearm or elbow area, somewhere around here on her, and then I think on her quad area is another gunshot wound to her as well.
And what did that injury appear like?
That appeared as a clear gunshot wound, and it appeared to be, it didn't look like an entry wound, it appeared to be an exit wound on her.
And you talked about Mr. De Silva's wounds. You mentioned another female who had an gunshot wound.
That was Mr. De Silva's fiance. She was laying back in between the counter and the entranceway to the chef cook area. She was on the phone with her mother, and I could hear her mother because she was on speakerphone, and she was talking to her mom. And her left leg underneath by her calf, underneath her knee, was just gone. It was a really big wound, hole. I mean, there was really nothing left of her leg. It was being held on by very small amounts of skin and maybe some muscle. Her leg was, it's equivalent to, a very combat wound you would sustain in combat. Out the troops out in Iraq and stuff like that.
Were you able to provide her with any aid or assistance?
Yes. When they took De Silva out on the gurney, I immediately began to render aid to her. I had a towel, and I was trying to hold her leg in place, like the ankle and the foot where the calf is supposed to be was dangling. So I was trying to keep that as secure as possible and was hoping that, you know, they could save that leg. And I was holding it with a towel, and then another EMS personnel arrived, and we placed her wound in it's like a makeshift air cast that would keep the wound stable. And we placed her leg in that. And I was trying to speak with her and make sure that she was staying awake, and she was very concerned about her fiance. And I was just trying to tell her, you know, everything's okay. We got fire and police here now, and you're okay, and we're going to take care of you and make sure you get home.
Okay. Where was Officer Gilpin at that time?
At that time, when the EMS arrived and he knew that I was okay and I had enough backup, Officer Gilpin asked me one more time if I needed anything, and I told him I did not need assistance, and I told him to go find Mr. Reinking. I told him to go get him.
Okay. Were there any other victims that were in need of emergency treatment inside the Waffle House at that time?
No, sir. It was just those individuals.
Your Honor, this time I'd like to pass up a group of pictures. A copy of these have already been provided to defense.
Yeah. And also try to keep using the notices they got on tap, okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna show these. That's I do, yeah. Sorry. Thank you. Officer Johns, do you recognize those images?
Yes, I did.
And what I've handed you is a composite of about 11 photos which have been pre-marked A through K. Are those images a fair and accurate depiction of the Waffle House at 3517 Murfreesboro Pike in Antioch, Tennessee, as it appeared on April 22nd, 2018?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. I'd ask that these be made the state's first exhibit. K.
Do you need them back?
And Your Honor, I'd like to publish them to the jury through a digital copy published to the jury. All right. Officer Johns, I'm showing you Exhibit 1A. Would you, what is this picture a picture of?
This is a picture of the Waffle House. That gold truck in the handicap spot is a truck that Mr. Reinking drove to the Waffle House in and committed a assault on the people out there.
Okay. And this is Exhibit 1B. I believe you said this is the Waffle House that you responded to. Is that located in Nashville, Davidson County?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is Exhibit 1C. What does this show?
This is the entranceway to the Waffle House, and these are the first two victims right there by the door. We had to put up the black thing to shield it from the media at the time, so we didn't want them to see the bodies that were outside of the Waffle House. Those are the first two victims that were obviously shot in the head and were deceased.
Okay. This is Exhibit 1D. What is this?
This is the entranceway to the Waffle House. This is the door that I had to walk into, and you can see Mr. Reinking's truck right there in the handicap parking spot right there, the front of it.
Are you to the right side of the image?
Yes.
Okay. This is Exhibit 1D.
Yes, this is the entranceway again, and you can see blood on the glass, and I believe that is a bullet hole in the glass above the American flag as well.
Okay, and I'm gonna show 1F.
That's a blood stain, and it appears to be a handprint of some type above the American flag. That is the entrance exit to the Waffle House.
All right, 1G. What is this? What does 1G show?
On the ground where the white towel, that's where the first 2 victims were located in that booth. The glass that is shattered is from when Mr. Reinking shot into the business from outside. I do believe that some of that glass, when it initially came through, was projectile toward one of the workers that was behind the counter at the time.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I don't think she sustained any life-threatening injuries at the time from that.
The white towel. Is there any blood or any other matter right there?
Yes, you can obviously see a large pool of blood to the left of the towel. The towel is stained in blood, and that is the towel that I use to perform life-saving efforts on the first victim.
Okay. I'm going to show you 1H. Sorry. This is 1H. Could you please tell me what this shows?
Yes. 1H shows, so this is once you enter the Waffle House, you turn left. The counter is to the right where you would receive your food if you're sitting next to the counter. And this is going towards Mr. Da Silva and his fiance, which are on the right side of this counter. You wouldn't be able to see them in this picture. But this is where that bullet that came through the glass and the glass projectile toward the worker on the other side of that counter.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you 1I. What does 1I show?
Those are so this counter right here is where Mr. Da Silva and his fiance, they were right in between. You see that shoe right there? I believe that's Mr. Da Silva's fiance's shoe. And she was kind of in between the counter and the entranceway to the kitchen, laying down. And Mr. Da Silva was laying right there on the ground. That's where I was attempting to save Mr. Da Silva's life right there.
Okay. And on this picture, obviously the screen shows a little blue menu box. That's not the image, but right next to that, are you able to see anything that I guess related to the victims or their injuries as you saw that day?
Just right next to the menu, you can see where there's blood right there, and that's going to be consistent where
Circle the screen.
I can circle it? Okay. Like right here, the menu kind of blocks it, but there's blood right there, and this is that's going to be Mr. Da Silva's fiance's shoe, I believe.
All right. Now I'm going to show you 1J. And
this is a firearm that was used to commit the assaults on the victims. When I first went in there, one of the workers brought to my attention that the rifle was still there. He didn't say it was a rifle. He just said the gun was here. And I said, "What kind of gun is it?" He said, "It's a big gun." And through my training, I knew that there was no mag in it. And based off of what Shaw told me, and I could tell that the bolt was locked to the rear, that means the gun did not have any bullets in it and it was inoperable. When other officers arrived, I had another officer standing with that weapon to make sure nobody would touch it or tamper with it.
But that's where the gun was when you found it?
Yes, it was directly behind the counter where the chefs were, and that's what Mr. Shaw stated, that he threw the gun.
Okay. And lastly, I'm going to show you Exhibit 1K. What is this area?
This is the cook area. To the right, roughly around this area, is where the first 2 female victims were sitting, and that is where I was rendering aid to them. And this counter right here where the basket is roughly about where I was able to grab the towels from the worker and place them on the victims and thrown to Mr. De Silva as well.
And do you see the bathroom area in this picture?
Yes. This is the bathroom area. I believe that the window is shattered. This is where Mr. Shaw stated that he told me he ran to the bathroom area. He stated that what he thought was the gun went dry. I don't remember the exact words that he told me, but he said at that time, he said to save his life, he went out there and fought Mr. Reinking and was able to gain control of the gun and throw the gun and push him out the store. He said, I pushed him out the store. I fought him. I pushed him out the store. I threw the gun.
Okay. Thank you. So now, Officer Johns, or Detective Johns, my apologies.
It's okay.
Detective Johns, after all the victims who were in need of emergency care were taken away by ambulance, what, if anything, did you do next?
I got my vehicle and I accessed a system that officers have access to. I ran the plate of the truck that was in the handicap spot that Mr. Shaw told me was his truck. At the time, it came back, I believe it was Illinois, and I called the department where the license plate came back to. I spoke to somebody over there at dispatch. She said, I asked if they had a photo of him because I didn't have any photo on our computer system at the time of him. And he had no, at the time, I don't think he had any kind of record with us. She was unable to provide me with a picture of Mr. Reinking at first. She put me in touch with the Illinois State Police that had a sergeant on duty. At this time, I spoke with the sergeant over there. I described what was going on. We gave our ORI, which is specific to show that, you know, we're police officers and that we're not just a civilian calling in asking for critical information. The sergeant at the Illinois was able to give me the picture of Mr. Reinking. I gave that to Sergeant LaChance, a South detective at the scene, and I think that was disseminated between all the officers out there that had access to their phones. And through the system, I was able to find an NES statement that had an apartment location for Mr. Reinking, which was not far from the Waffle House. Maybe less than a mile or so from the Waffle House. And I do believe he was found in the woods between the Waffle House and the apartment complex.
And do you remember what that address was? I
think it was in the 3000 block of Mountain Spring or something like that. I'm not really sure.
When did you document that in a supplement report?
Yes, it's in my supplement.
And would reviewing your supplemental report help refresh your recollection as to what the address was?
Yes, it would help refresh my recollection.
Now, Detective Johns, just look at it and see once your recollection is refreshed, and then please put the report down and then let us know what it is.
All right. The address is going to be 5000 Mountain Spring, Antioch, Tennessee.
Okay. And was there an apartment number?
Yes, sir. It's apartment 409.
And did you provide the address to the other officers?
Yes, I gave it to Sergeant LaChance and the South detective. Once I was able to retrieve that information, I was actually part of the officers that were not only looking in the neighborhoods, but I was securing the area of the apartment complex until our SWAT team arrived. When our SWAT team arrived, I stood on the perimeter until it was breached and Mr. Reinking was not inside the apartment.
And how long did you participate in the search?
It was hours. I think I worked it felt like close to 2 days straight working. It was roughly 16, 18 hours straight. It was my night shift, normal shift from 10:30 to 7, and I think I got off the next day at like maybe 5 in the afternoon or something like that.
Anything else?
Oh, yes.
And Detective Johns, just to be clear, were there any other police officers on the scene at the Waffle House before you arrived?
There was no other officers on scene. I was the first responder to arrive on scene.
All right. Detective Johns, thank you for your service that night.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Officer.
All right, that wraps up this officer's testimony. We're going to dive into another officer's testimony that was on the scene as well. I don't know about you guys, but whenever they show crime scene pictures, I get so tense because I think I have trust issues with the internet and trusting that they don't show anything, since sometimes they like to forget, apparently. So I did scrub through this next one and the next video after that we'll watch. And as far as the crime scene pictures, I will say that at least what I did scrub through, it does seem like they're safe. And if there is anything, then they do blur stuff. But just a warning that I don't have full control over what they end up showing. So let's go on over to the other officer's testimony now and see what his experience was on this scene. Oops, give me 1 second.
Good morning, officer. Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Officer John Gilpin, and that's John Gilp as in Paul, IN.
Officer Gilpin, where are you employed?
Here at the Metro Nashville Police Department.
And how long have you been an officer with the Metro Nashville Police Department?
Since March 1st, 2011, so it'll be 11 years in about a month.
Chrissy R coming in with the official Wicked fam. Welcome. Super appreciate you joining as a member over here now. I really, really do infinitely appreciate your continued support for so long.
Okay. And what is your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned to the K-9 unit.
What is a K-9 unit?
We have a couple of different functions. The particular function that I do is I have a cross-train apprehension and narcotics detection dog. So we do street level work as well in terms of tracking for suspects, locating, doing searches of that nature. And then we also do like narcotic searches upon request and things like that.
So you work with a dog?
Yes, sir.
And is he your partner?
Yes, sir.
Sounds pretty cool. How long have you been doing that?
I transferred to K-9, I believe it was June of 2017. So approximately 4 years.
And you said that your K-9 partner, do you mind sharing his name?
Brax. Sorry, I should have already said that, but yes.
That Brax is cross-trained in apprehension and detection. What does that mean?
So our primary function is to be a support unit for patrol. Anytime a call comes out where there's a shooting, a robbery, any type of violent felony that takes place, and the suspect, if we have a good description of the suspect, and they flee on foot in an area that we can use the dog because the dog is capable of scent tracking much better than humans are, and we will utilize the canine partner to try to track a subject from the scene of a crime and get a direction of flight and track them until we either make an apprehension or at least try to help gather information for investigators later as in terms of a direction of flight.
And what kind of dog is Brax?
He is a solid black German Shepherd.
How does Brax let you know whether or not he's detected something that you're looking for?
In terms to like suspect apprehension or for narcotics?
Apprehension, yes.
When we're tracking a suspect, typically we will try to get a description of where the last known direction of flight was for that subject, and I'll bring my dog to that part and we'll try to get him what we call in the scent. And what he will do is he will take his nose and he'll put it down to the ground for the, and as he tracks, he will follow that scent. He follows the scent of the freshest scent. We don't do like on TV where we hand an article of clothing and he smells that and then start tracking. That's not how we do it. We do it based off kind of the freshest scent for that scene, that area. So we will deploy him in that area until he picks up that scent, and then he will follow that scent until we either get to the source of it or until we lose it. And that could be because they got in a car. A lot of times it's because they've crossed a hard surface like a parking lot or road, things that are much more difficult for the dog to be able to track scent-wise that way. But for the most part, when he is tracking, he has his head down, and you can hear his nose kind of popping because he's really smelling, and he can smell those. And it tends to be skin cells, different, things like that. The chemicals that the person's releasing as they're in fear or in that fight or flight kind of mentality, the pheromones that they're dropping, skin cells, things like that, are what he's actually smelling and detecting, and we utilize that to try to track to the source of that.
So, were you working with Brax on the early morning hours of April 22nd, 2018?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. And did you receive a dispatch to respond to a Waffle House located at 3571 Murfreesboro Pike?
Yes, sir.
And about what time did you receive the call?
I believe the call came in at approximately 3:30 in the morning.
Okay. And what was the dispatch that you received?
I believe the call came out as an active shooter. I don't remember if they used the 10 code, which is, we have different codes assigned to different calls. I don't remember if they put out the 10 code, the code 9000 for active shooter, or if they said over the air plain text that it was an active shooter, but it was an active shooter dispatch.
Okay. About what time did you arrive on the scene?
I arrived on scene at approximately 3:35.
Okay. And as you were driving there, were you driving in emergency mode?
Yes, sir.
With lights and sirens?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did you do what did you observe, if anything, when you arrived on the scene?
When I first started pulling up, I wasn't really familiar with that location in particular. As I got closer, I saw Officer Johns' patrol car, who was first on scene, already in the parking lot. And that's when I turned off all my equipment and turned into the Waffle House parking lot myself, and got out of my car to kind of establish what we had in terms of the immediate response to the call. And I went inside to assist Officer Johns, and I saw two people laying in the parking lot, or one right by the door and one on the sidewalk close to the door.
Did they appear to be alive to you?
No. The first male that I encountered was near the door, and it was very apparent that he was deceased. He had a very traumatic head injury. His skull was crowned out towards the front, and it appeared to have brain matter material coming out, and there was a pool of blood under his head right there by the door. A little bit further down the sidewalk, where there were some other cars parked, there was another person laying deceased, or presumed to be deceased at the time, because they were motionless, and the way that their body was kind of laying was not a natural position. It looked like somebody had been shot while they were running and fell. And based on what I was seeing and hearing from inside, I didn't check for any kind of vital signs on either of those people. I went straight inside to help to start stabilizing that scene.
Okay. And when you went inside to help stabilize the scene, what did you do?
The first thing that I did is I asked Officer Johns what he needed. I asked him if he needed a tourniquet with the person that he was helping. He said no, but there was another gentleman around the corner that he said he needed some help. So I started towards him. I noticed when I came in the front door that there was a woman that appeared to be deceased underneath a booth. She was turned in a very awkward position. The only way I know how to describe it is kind of like when you have a small child that's at a booth at a restaurant and they're trying to get out to go to the bathroom and nobody wants to get, they like climbed down underneath the booth and was turned backwards and kind of bent backwards. And there was a lot of blood there. And then there was another female there as well that was also in the booth and slid down, but face up. And I knew one of them was probably deceased as well. But I passed them went towards the gentleman that Officer John said needed some help because he was injured.
As you were walking through the restaurant, did you see any spent rifle casings?
Yes, there was a lot of ammunition, shell casings, 223, 5.56 rifle rounds that were on the ground. There was a very distinct smell of, freshly spent gunpowder. Was in the Waffle House as well.
Now, as you go over to help the other two individuals you were just talking about, what did you do when you got to them?
So there was, as soon as you go in, there's a few booths, and then there's kind of the counter with the bar stools, and then it kind of goes around a corner to where there's more seating and goes kind of behind the counter, I presume, where the cooks were. As I went around the corner of the bar, I observed there was a female laying on the ground, or not laying, she was sitting on the ground, but she was on the phone with someone, and she had a devastating leg injury. And then she was beside another male who kept saying, my arm hurts really bad. My arm's killing me. It was just over and over. It was apparent that something had happened to his arm, and there was some blood, if my memory serves, on the sweater or the shirt that he was wearing, but it wasn't pooling, but it was apparent that there was an injury to his arm.
The lady who you described as having a devastating leg injury, what do you mean by that?
It was apparent that she had been shot in the leg, if my memory serves, just below the knee. It was all but severed. There was a little bit of tissue, I presumed skin, maybe a little bit of muscle mass there, but for the most part, the leg appeared to be severed. And the thing that stood out to me was how calm she was, and she was on the phone with someone. I don't know who she was on the phone with, but she was very calm and coherent, and she wasn't bleeding a lot. The wound wasn't, she wasn't spewing blood by any means, and she was coherent. So I went towards the gentleman that was talking about his arm being hurt, and applied a tourniquet to him.
And what is a tourniquet?
It's basically a device that we use that we can wrap legs and arms with that cuts off the blood flow to that extremity. So if you have some type of devastating injury to your arm or your leg, we'll apply a tourniquet up higher than that wound, and that will stop the body from pumping blood to that wound and trying to keep a person from bleeding to death.
At some point, were you able to? Were any of the paramedics able to come inside the Waffle House to assist you?
After a few minutes on scene, like I said, we applied the tourniquet, and then Officer Johns was working on another person as well that needed medical attention. We tried to make a quick triage of how many confirmed dead we had versus how many critical injuries versus how many we have a code system for the level of injury. Code 4 being deceased, code 3 being life-threatening injuries, code 2 being severe but not necessarily life-threatening, and then code 1 being lesser minor injuries. So we were trying to make that assessment of how many code 4, code 3, code 2 victims we had, so we could start establishing our EMS response. And then while we were doing that, the first ambulance, the first group of fire department personnel started arriving.
Okay. Once they arrived, what if anything, did you do?
Once they came inside, I made contact with Officer Johns again, asked him if he needed me for anything else inside. He said no, he had it. And at that point, I went outside to get ready to start trying to deploy my canine partner to begin a track. As soon as I went outside, there was a witness that was talking to another officer, and he was giving a description at that time to that officer, and I interrupted, basically stopped their conversation, said, repeat everything you just said in terms of description, so that way I could have a firsthand account of the description of the suspect before I began tracking.
What was the description?
It was a male white with orangish red hair, and that was completely nude.
Okay.
And I had a direction of flight going outbound on Murfreesboro, on the south side of Murfreesboro Road.
Okay. And what did you do once you got the direction of flight and the description?
I immediately went over to my patrol car, got my tracking harness and lead out, and deployed my canine partner Brax, and we began tracking.
Okay. And so as you begin tracking, where do you go?
So from the parking lot, going outbound Murfreesboro is going away from downtown Nashville. It's going just out towards the county line. So we were on the south side of that, and we started tracking out of that parking lot, and we're going in a straight line. About the time that we got out of the parking lot, dispatch came over the radio and updated that another victim from the scene had fled in a vehicle and had just called in and had saw him running further down Murfreesboro. So given the kind of time delay I was already on, I was still very close to my car, so I put Brax back in my car, and then we drove closer to where the sighting of him was, and then I redeployed from a closer location, trying to make up some time there.
Okay. And so when you say redeploy, what does that mean?
Got my canine partner back out of the car, and we resumed the track from a closer location than instead of trying to do it all on foot and catch up to somebody on foot. We got back out of the car and then reinitiated the track from a closer position.
Did Brax give any indication that he was able to pick up a scent?
Yes, we were tracking as we were coming down the south side of Murfreesboro, running parallel. We tracked. I hesitate to give an exact distance, but we tracked for a good little ways, a couple of minutes, until we got to an oversized, like a driveway or a street that led up to an apartment complex. Or a development off the south side of Murfreesboro Road, and we lost that trackable scent at about that road.
Okay. Did the weather change at any point while you were conducting your track?
Not at that time. It rained later in the day, but that was after sunrise. That was hours after the incident had happened.
Okay, understood. But so were you able to use Brax to locate the suspect you were looking for?
No, sir. We did not successfully find anyone. Once we lost the track, we started doing what we called kind of a grid search or a sweep, where we went past that road going towards the old Starwood Amphitheater, which was further down the street, trying to see if we could pick it back up. We broke off and trying to find different areas where it might have picked back up, and we weren't able to pick that back up.
How long did you participate in the search to find
the overall search, or just on the track itself?
The overall search.
I was relieved at 6:15 p.m. the following evening.
What shift did you work?
Midnight's the previous night. So I came in at 10:30 at night the previous night, and then I was there until 6:15 at the next evening.
Okay. Officer Gilpin, I'd like to show you a map, if I can, on the overhead projection. I'm going to zoom out a little so you see. You able to tell what this street is here?
Yes, that's Murfreesboro Pike.
Okay. And are you able to determine where the Waffle House approximately is located?
I believe so. Can I touch the screen?
Yeah, you can touch absolutely.
It's right in here.
And what I'm gonna do is, it's okay, I'll make that circle on the actual map in
Okay.
red. You said about here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And which direction did you go on Murfreesboro Pike as you followed?
As we traveled, we started, like I said, out of that parking lot, and we were on the south side of Murfreesboro, and we tracked. I apologize, it's not letting me mark on the screen.
Okay, I can indicate it.
Try it on that. Try to clear it on that screen there.
Oh.
There we go.
We began tracking this direction on that south side of Murfreesboro, paralleling Murfreesboro Pike.
Okay. I'm gonna mark with a black marker this time. Do the same arrow you just did. This is correct, like this?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you said that you, at some point, tracked him to the opening or the driveway into an apartment complex. About where was that? Okay.
That would be this road here.
Okay.
So we tracked up until this point because that is just before that TVA power line access road.
All right. And I'm going to make that same circle in red. Center right here.
Yes, sir.
I'd ask this be made next exhibit. Exhibit 2. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Wrong.
You need to overhead on. Yes. You should be on just a second.
Can you see that picture, Officer Gilpin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just a few things. This overhead picture, did you make this or did somebody else
sir.
just make it, show it to you?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea if this overhead picture is what it was, the area was like at the time of the incident back in 18, or if this is a more recent picture? Do you have any idea?
I couldn't tell you, sir.
Okay. Is it fair to say that Murfreesboro Pike is a major road with quite a bit of traffic?
It is a busier road in terms of being a main thoroughfare of non-interstate or non-kind of parkway traffic.
Okay. And my understanding is, I heard what you said about going to the Waffle House, and then someone told you that the suspect was a completely naked white male.
Yes.
Okay. And so you were looking for that person, if you could spot a completely naked white male outside there.
Yes, sir.
You were also using your dog to try to track them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so when you said that when you initially deployed the dog, was that at the Waffle House itself?
Yes, that was from the Waffle House parking lot.
And you weren't getting, I guess, a track that's good enough?
We started. The only reason that I repositioned to redeploy was just based off of the time delay that I was on. Knowing that a suspect was on foot, which typically means running at as a high rate of speed as fast as I can. Mm-hmm. I was already several minutes behind. Right. So when had the dispatch not came in for an updated sighting further out Murfreesboro Pike, I would have just continued on that track on foot. But based on time and the urgency to try to find the suspect before something else might happen, I felt it was urgent to kind of reposition my vehicle, because I can drive faster than I can run, obviously. So I went a little ways down the road to closer to where the sighting was, and then redeployed, and we picked the track right back up.
Okay. And just so that we're clear, you never saw any naked white males running or anything like that?
No, sir.
And when you said you picked up the trail again, can you can point to this image, just make a dot on it roughly where you redeployed and picked up the trail?
I can only kind of give a general idea. I believe that it's right in this area, kind of in that either parking lot right there or that other little side street, because it was a small little pull off where I pulled into.
And you were able then to track the trail from that dot down to where the second red circle is, right?
Yes, sir.
And did the trail go on Murfreesboro Road or a sidewalk on Murfreesboro Road?
No, sir. It was in the grass, kind of paralleling Murfreesboro Pike. There wasn't, to my recollection, there wasn't a sidewalk there. I think it's just a shoulder, and it kind of paralleled down Murfreesboro.
And that's what I'm getting at. The track was very close to the street.
Yes,
Is that fair to say that? It
Yes.
might not have been a sidewalk, but the track was very close to the street.
Yes, sir.
And from the time you picked it up here, now, you just happened to start right there where that dot is, picking up the trail again, but you could have possibly picked it up closer to the Waffle House. Would you agree?
Yes.
Cross speculation.
Okay. But in any event, from that dot that you put on there, which looks like roughly halfway between the Waffle House and the entrance to the apartment complex, you could pick up the scent in the grass near the street all the way into the entrance of the apartment complex.
Yes, sir.
Where it appeared to be the driveway that would go into the apartment complex.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was a driveway into an apartment complex at that time. I thought it was a road, but that's where.
Okay. And did you say you lost the scent at that point, or did you just stop?
We lost like the area where I knew he was tracking, because when he's tracking, he's very focused. He's head down. He's pulling. He's very driven in what he's doing. When he loses that track, he tends to, his head comes up and he starts searching around, and it gives indicators that he's not positively tracking the scent that he was. And that's where he started doing that, where he started looking around and started trying to sniff around to see if he could pick it back up, but he was not actively tracking and pulling me anymore once we got to that road.
Okay. All right. Just 1 second, Your Honor, please. All right. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Redirect?
No.
All right, thank you, officer.
Okay, that wraps up this officer's testimony. Next, we're going to be looking at a CSI investigator on the case. This one does have more pictures, so I do warn you again, they're not as empty as the other ones. I did scrub through. The ones that I did see seem to have been blurred, where there are people to see, so I do warn you on that one. But as far as anything else, I don't think they show anything too overtly. All right, so let's open up this CSI investigator and see what she has to say. You guys were talking about, the description affecting you or not affecting you. You know what I find to really affect me the most, I think, was like the officer before this one. When officers or medical personnel are showing emotion on the stand, I feel like that impacts me so much more deeply, because I find that these people are trained to kind of deal with these situations, maybe not to this extent, of course, but still more trained to deal with it than someone like myself. And when they show that kind of emotion, I feel like it just makes it that much more difficult to see that they're human too and they really can't handle it. So it must be really that bad, especially because he said that this wasn't the first time he's seen, gunshots go off and people deceased, but this was a whole new level. So I feel like that definitely affects me more, seeing that emotion from people that are trained to maybe handle it a bit more than me.
Investigator Connor, could you please state your full name for the record?
Danielle Connor, first name Danielle, last name Connor.
And Investigator Connor, could you please describe where you're employed and what your position is?
I am employed with the Metro Nashville Police Department as a crime scene investigator.
And what is a crime scene investigator?
A crime scene investigator responds to any scene or that detectives or patrol sergeants or officers dispatch us to. We respond to process the scenes for evidence. The processing includes photography, note-taking, diagramming. We also do Faro scans, which is an electronic device that'll create a 3D view of the scene.
And how long have you worked for the police department in that capacity?
As of today, approximately 5.5 years.
And did you respond to 3571 Murfreesboro Road on April 22nd of 2018?
I did, yes.
And can you describe when you got to the scene, what you found?
When I arrived on scene, patrol officers were already there. The scene had already been put up with crime scene tape around the perimeter of the parking lot. There were multiple different units still responding when I responded. When my first initial view of the crime scene itself, I noted that there were 3 deceased individuals at the scene. I was also notified that several victims had been transported to hospitals. There were numerous cartridge casings in the parking lot and the interior of the business, as well as a firearm. And the parking lot contained several vehicles still.
And for this particular scene, were you the only crime scene investigator that was working, or did you work with a team?
I worked with a team. When I responded initially, 3 partners responded with me. We all work the midnight shift, and then we had 2 additional individuals meet us there later in the morning from the day shift team.
Were you the lead investigator in that team?
That's correct.
And take us through kind of your process of leading that investigation. I know you've described the scene as you found it, but what were the first steps that you took?
So when we first arrived on scene, I met with Detective Patton and the vice president of the Waffle House. It was imperative to me to view the surveillance video first off to get an accurate description of the suspect, as well as an understanding of what took place, what the incident was.
And were you able to do that?
Yes.
And have portions of that surveillance video been kind of put together to give an accurate depiction of what happened that night?
As far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Your Honor, at this time, there's no objection with defense. We have agreed that the surveillance video would be entered, but I would ask that this disc that has 5 separate videos on it be introduced as the next numbered exhibit.
Number 3.
Not right now. Investigator Connor, you said that you viewed the surveillance video. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And then what were your next steps?
After viewing the surveillance video, I had established the back door to the restaurant as our what we deemed like the working entrance. That way we aren't going through the front door where I had viewed the suspect entering and exiting. That eliminates any additional evidence being introduced to that area, as well as taking away any evidence. After establishing that, we had put up these black screens for the 2 victims outside the restaurant. We do that to maintain their privacy and to keep the view of any additional people driving down the road from viewing the victims. After putting up the scene screens, we kind of had to take a step back out of the scene. There was some concern about the truck, so we had to wait for bomb squad to arrive and clear the truck. While they were doing that, from my view of the surveillance video, I had seen the suspect taking his jacket off as he exited. So my thought was, where is the jacket? Was it still with him, or had he maybe lost it or dropped it during his flight? So I had started to walk his path of flight south down Murfreesboro and located the jacket.
And as part of that process, I know that you were describing photography and note-taking and Faro scans. Did they use Faro scans at this particular scene?
Yes, we did.
And can you describe what a Faro scan is generally?
So a Faro scan is an electronic device. It uses a laser beam and mirrors to collect millions of data points. The data points are then put into a point cloud, and using associated software, that point cloud is then rendered into 3D imaging of the scene. We're not talking like a model. It'll be almost like a video. It'll allow anybody viewing it to view the scene as I saw it when I was processing it. So it'll be almost as though you're there walking through the scene with me when you view it.
And is it, obviously it's more complicated than this, but is it kind of like taking a picture and wrapping it around so that you can move around that picture image?
Yes, it's a 360 view. So you can rotate, with the software, you can rotate the image you're looking at to look all around you up at the sky.
And the Faro scans that were done at this scene, I guess, are there a lot of them?
Yes.
And were they done of the exterior and interior of that scene?
Yes, so we scanned both the exterior and the interior of the scene using 2 scanners, and then the scans from the 2 were stitched together to create an overall Faro viewing.
And were photographs taken of that scene?
Yes.
And I would assume that there are a large number of photographs taken.
We took almost 900 photographs, including the overall of the exterior and interior, all evidence, the victims.
And have certain photographs been linked into the Faro scans for purposes of showing the Faro to the jury at this trial?
Yes, they have.
And at this time, I would ask that the Faro scan, which is on a thumb drive that we have, just be marked as the next numbered exhibit, which I believe would be number 4.
Correct.
And I will ask to submit it once we are finished publishing it, but I would also ask to publish that to the jury.
All right.
Investigator Connors, can you kind of just describe what is being shown on the screen right here?
So this is an overall, like, what's termed as a bird's eye view of the scene itself. The little purple or blue or red little numbered markers are where each of the Faro scanners have been set up and collected each individual scan.
Now I am going to begin by going to the scan that is labeled 100-100. And can you describe what is seen here? And I am going to pan towards the south. Or I'm sorry, towards the north of Murfreesboro Road.
Yes, so here we have Murfreesboro Road. Across the street was a shopping complex where media and a lot of people were arriving for the scene. This is one of the entrances into the Waffle House off Murfreesboro Road from the north side. We had brought out our large crime scene truck out to the scene. Inside there's workbenches and all of our processing stuff that we can use to process evidence right inside the truck, as well as to keep it safe and secure once it's collected. So here we have you can see two sets of crime scene tape. So we have the interior crime scene tape and the exterior. The interior maintains the scene itself. That sidewalk in between we used as our area to like liaison with detectives and anybody else arriving to the scene. And the exterior disallows anybody not allowed into the scene from coming even onto the sidewalk.
And I'm going to go to scan 100-101. And can you just describe what is seen here?
So this scan has moved south down the sidewalk. Usually, the scanners are usually placed about 20 steps, 15 to 20 steps from each other, so that there is some overlapping data. This is the Waffle House at 3571 Murfreesboro Pike.
And there appears to be, I think you've already identified the beige truck.
Yeah.
Can you describe what's next to it?
So to the right of it, right here, is that black scene screen that I have been describing. So behind that, it was put up to block the view of one of the victims lying on the sidewalk.
And it appears that the doors to that vehicle are open.
Correct.
Is that how the vehicle was found, or can you describe?
When I originally arrived on scene, the doors were shut. They were open when bomb squad had cleared the vehicle.
And did you determine anything about the other vehicles that were in the parking lot that day?
So most of the vehicles they belonged to either patrons that were there at the time of the incident or workers. I had been later informed that the Honda at the front of the scan right here is what belonged to the victim, Mr. Perez, and that the car to the right of the truck, this one right here, had belonged to, I believe, Sharita Henderson.
And going to scan 100-102, can you describe what is shown here?
This is also a view of the Waffle House, more of a direct view of the front door. The Waffle House is located on the west side of Murfreesboro Pike, so this would be the east side of the restaurant.
And moving to scan 004, can you describe what is shown here?
Yes, so this is just another angle of that parking lot and the Waffle House. Moving down on the scan, you can see that the parking lot continued along the west side of the building, which also led to an exit back over here that came out onto Summercrest Boulevard. As you can also see, the little spots, it had started raining while we were out there.
And the next scan is 003. Can you describe what is seen here?
This is the northwest corner, well, where the Waffle House is the northwest corner of this intersection. Yep. So on the streets here, we have this street right here is going to be Murfreesboro Pike. South is the farther away view, and it runs north. Going this way is Summercrest Boulevard. And then if you cross the intersection, it turned into Pinhook.
And moving to scan 002, can you describe what is shown here?
So this is a closer view of that intersection. Those trucks are parked on Summercrest Boulevard into the entrance of that neighborhood.
And moving to scan 001.
Yes, so in this view, you can see that more crime scene tape has been put up over here at the corner of the intersection. That is where I had located the green jacket believed to have been Mr. Reinking's when he had fled southbound on Murfreesboro Pike.
And it appears that there are two people that are standing there.
Yes, the two individuals here are officers. Anytime we find any evidence in an exterior part of the scene, we always make sure that an officer stands by it to ensure that it is not removed or tampered with.
And moving to scan Can you describe what is shown here?
So this is closer to where that jacket had been found. This is the intersection Murfreesboro. If you look up the hill in the view we have here, that is going to be southbound on Murfreesboro Pike. And where you have right there with the number 1 is the jacket I had been describing. It was green in color and labeled evidence marker 1.
And is that how the jacket was found?
Yes, it is.
And I am going to click on the evidence marker 1. And this will be photograph. There are actually a set of 41 photographs that are included in the Faro scan. Those will be marked A through OO, and those will be submitted as a collective exhibit with the actual Faro scan.
So the scan itself, we're going to mark as exhibit 4 and the photos contained within it 4, 5. 4-1, 8 through 00. How do you want to do it? Which way do you want to do it?
If we can do the thumb drive is 4 and then the photographs is 5, A through OO, so that they're separated.
Exhibit 8 through 00.
And so this first photograph is exhibit 5A. Could you describe what is shown in this photo?
This is a photograph of that jacket marked as evidence 1. That ruler placed up at the top corner of the photo, we place for the Faro scans. It helps to keep the Faro scans accurate because we can use the Faro scans to create a diagram later based on measurements. But that is the jacket that I had located at the southwest corner of the intersection.
And this is exhibit 5B.
So within the jacket, in each of the front pockets, I had located a rifle magazine, each containing 30 cartridges.
And can you mark those two magazines?
Yeah, so here is one of them that have been removed from the one pocket, and then the other one's still inside that pocket.
And this image is 5C. Could you describe what's shown here?
Here we are demonstrating with the photo the cartridges that were still inside the magazine.
And Investigator Connor, did you collect those items as part of processing this scene?
Yes, we did.
And Your Honor, I'm going to ask that the witness be handed an item.
Thank you.
Do you recognize the item that's just been handed to you?
Yes, it contains a ripped green jacket with possible blood stains.
And is that the jacket that you collected from this scene that you've just described?
Yes, it is.
And Your Honor, at this time, I would ask that that be entered as the next numbered exhibit, which I believe would be number 6.
Number 6.
And if I can ask the witness to be handed another item. Do you recognize the item that was just handed to you?
Yes, it contains 2 TAM rifle magazines from pocket of green jacket.
And these items of evidence, do they have labels that have a complaint number and other identifiers where you're easily able to tell what the item is?
Yes, so all of our packaging will have the complaint number associated with the incident, the time and date it was collected, as well as the location, and then the evidence seals will have my date and time, or my initials and the date.
And Your Honor, I would ask that that item be introduced as the next numbered exhibit. have a third item to hand this witness. Do you recognize the item that was just handed to you?
Yes, it's 60 RP 223 Remington cartridges from the magazines.
And those were collected from the actual magazine and removed and packaged separately. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. So 30 each came from each of the two magazines.
And Your Honor, at this time, I ask that that item be introduced as the next number exhibit, which I believe is number 8. And so I am going back to scan 001, which you have already described, and going back to scan 002. And now going to scan 006. Can you describe what is shown here?
This is the parking lot that is located on the south side of the restaurant. Here you can see we also still have the 2 layers of crime scene tape put up. And over, kind of by that, I believe by the blue tent over, somewhere over here, was a second entrance exit to the restaurant off Summercrest Boulevard.
And can you describe what is shown here?
This is a view of the south side of the restaurant. The windows towards the bottom middle squares, 2 of them appeared to have bullet strikes to them.
And I am moving to the photograph that is actually labeled broken glass window. Can you describe what is shown here?
So this is a close-up photograph of those 2 windows on the south side of the business. There appear to be at least 2, if not more, bullet strikes through that window, those 2 windows.
And this is Exhibit 5D. Can you mark on the screen what you're referring to as the at least 3 strikes to this window?
Yes, so there's one right there, and possibly a third one here. It's hard to tell with how the window had fractured and broken out, because there could be additional in that missing glass. But for sure, the 2 at the bottom, we had clearly identified as bullet strikes through those windows.
And I am moving now to scan 005. Could you describe what is shown here?
This is the parking lot more towards the front of the business. The truck you see, the tan or gold truck, is the suspect's vehicle. The little yellow markers in the parking lot are marking the evidence or cartridge cases that we had located. You also can see in this view one of those black screens right here. This is where Mr. Perez had been located.
And I am moving out to scan 009. Can you describe what is shown here?
Yes, so this scans a little closer to that truck and the evidence. You can see that we marked the evidence starting with evidence marker 2 because the jacket had been 1. So you can clearly see 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which were all cartridge casings. They were all RP 223 Remington.
And I am moving to what is marked in the FARO as EM 2 through 6, which is Exhibit 5E. Could you describe what is shown in this photograph?
So this is a photo of that same view you had seen previously on the FARO scan. Here you can clearly see that 2 is marking a cartridge case, 3 is marking a cartridge case. And And then there are more up by the door of his vehicle as well as near the sidewalk. From this view, you can also see that the truck had an Illinois license plate on it.
And did you collect all of those cartridge casings with the evidence markers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
After all processing was done, yes.
And I am moving to EM 7 through 11, which is Exhibit 5F. Could you describe what is shown here?
This is a closer photograph of those markers 7 through 11 near the driver door of the truck. They also are all marking cartridge casings. All were also the same brand, RP223 Remington.
And I am moving to what is marked in the Pharaoh as EM 17. And this is also Exhibit 5G. Could you describe what is shown in this photograph?
When searching the scene, we also searched the bed of the truck, and 17 is also marking an RP223 Remington cartridge case.
And moving in the Pharaoh to what is marked as D2, and this is Exhibit 5H. Can you describe what is shown here?
This is the front of the truck. This device back here behind the truck is that Pharaoh scanner that I've been referencing. The top part of it, this part, will spin around to collect that 3D point scan. Evidence marker 12 on the hood, down past the hood near where the windshield wipers were, was also a cartridge casing. And then right here is a bullet defect to the hood of the vehicle. And we had determined that it had gone from the driver's side towards the passenger side of the vehicle.
And you refer to that as a bullet defect, but does that appear to be a bullet hole where one of the bullets struck the hood of that vehicle?
Yeah, bullet hole strike defect. Mm-hmm.
And moving to what is marked in the Pharaoh as EM12. And this image is Exhibit 5I. Could you describe what is shown here?
This is a photograph of that cartridge casing I've been talking to, that had been down within the hood by the windshield wipers. It's right here. So that was marked with evidence marker 12.
And was that collected along with the other shell casings that you have testified about up to this point?
Yes, it was.
And moving to Pharaoh scan 10016, could you describe what is shown here?
This scanner is placed near the sidewalk or on the sidewalk, near the entrance to the restaurant. To the right here, we have a window that also had a bullet defect in it. And then this back parking lot is to the south side.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to skip ahead a bit. I was scrubbing through the video on the side, and I noticed that the blurred images I was referring to before are condensed in this one little section. So I'm just going to skip ahead through it. I'm assuming they're just going to talk about the bodies a bit more. I don't know why they need to show them right now. So we're just going to skip past them.
Semicircle, or it'll be a full circle, but it is where the legs of the stand for the scanner are. It can't scan down around between those legs. So in the base of those triangle legs, there will be a circle that doesn't get scanned. That's why we do multiple, so that any additional will cover and then complete that view of that. Towards the wall of windows on the left side, right here, was what appeared to be a bullet strike to those bricks.
And I am going to go what is marked as D4 within the Pharaoh. It is also Exhibit 5N. Could you describe what is shown in this image?
Yes, so here's a view towards the windows from that. Here we have marked that defect I was referencing with a sticker scale to give a size of the defect. And it appears that there was a ricochet mark leading to that defect on the concrete.
I could have just one moment. Your Honor, the parties have agreed to allow this witness to testify more than once, and at this time, I'm going to complete this portion of her testimony.
All right. Just to explain members of the jury, usually when a witness is called to testify, they testify about any of the factual knowledge that they have because of the way this case unfolded. It's necessary to kind of break them down into parts and make it make sense to you. Ross?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Hello.
So just a couple of quick questions. You did extensive pictures and the Faro scanning of the parking lot, correct?
Correct.
And specifically, there were several scans that dealt with the positioning of the vehicles in the parking lot, correct?
That captured the vehicles, yes. Mm-hmm.
And you said that the tan truck is the one you're attributing to being Mr. Reinking's truck. Is that correct?
From viewing the surveillance video, that's the vehicle that the suspect had exited out of, yes.
And that parking lot that you were in, it had 2 handicap spaces, if you recall.
I don't recall
Remember
per
that?
se, but
It's fair to say from the pictures that you showed, I believe it being Exhibit 5E and the Faro scan number was 009, that if the scan showed that there was an empty handicap spot in front of the window of the Waffle House and another handicap spot where Mr. Reinking's truck was situated to the right of that, would you dispute that?
I'd have to see the photo again that you're referring to.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. You looked at these photos to prepare for today, right?
There were almost 900 photos,
Right.
so I can't say which exact photo you're referencing, sorry.
Right, and the ones that, and I'm just speaking now about the ones that you went over with the district attorney during your examination just now. You saw those when you were
Right.
showing them to you, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall there being a photo of Mr. Reinking's truck? that you
Yeah, there
reviewed?
were several photos of the truck. I can't remember the exact positioning. My focus was more on the evidence in the photos.
Right.
If you could show me the photo again that you're referring to.
Do you have a physical copy of 5E? Oh, thank you. Your Honor, I'm going to publish picture 5E.
It's more than
Take
that.
a second. Then it'll come up. There you go. You're good.
All right, can you see that photograph?
Yes, it appears his truck might be in a handicap spot.
All
Yes.
right. And what I'm showing you has been previously marked as the state's Exhibit 5E,
Okay.
just for clarity of the record. And do you note that there's a empty spot, I guess, to the left of the yellow lines?
Are you referring to here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And that's where the actual windows to the Waffle House begin. Is that correct?
That's correct.
To the right of that is a brick wall. Is that right?
To
To the right of those windows, if you were staring at the Waffle House, kind of the same vantage point that this picture's taken, if you're standing at the Waffle House, to the right of those windows is a brick wall that's part of the Waffle House, correct?
on the Waffle House or by the parking lot of the Waffle
No,
House?
I mean, what you're the building that is the Waffle House. It's
Yes.
brick, right?
Yes.
All right. So when you're staring at it at the Waffle House from this vantage point where this picture was taken, do you see if you're looking at the Waffle House, do you see a bunch of windows?
To the left of the photo, yes.
Yes.
Or windows.
To the right of the photo, what do you see?
In front of the truck is brick, yes.
Right. Not glass.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Raise your hand.
No, you're right. Thank you.
Thank you. Investigation, may sit down.
Thank you.
Please do not discuss any of your testimony.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now we are going to listen to an eyewitness, Chelsea Owens, take the stand, and then a mother of the victim, Joe Perez, that they've been discussing, and then an aunt of a victim as well. So that will be wrapping up today's stream with those testimonies. So it'll be 3 back to back.
And Ms. Owens, can you spell your first and last names?
CHELSEY OWENS.
Great, thank you. Back on April 21st, going into April 22nd, 2018, or in the early morning hours of that Sunday morning, April 22nd, who were you with?
I was with Alexis Peoples and Kayla Shaw.
Okay, and make sure you keep your voice up, please.
Oh, sorry.
And man, where had y'all been?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Where had y'all been before you?
We had went to a party prior to going to the Waffle House.
Okay, great. Who was driving?
Kayla Shaw was driving.
Right, and who decided to go to the Waffle House?
It was my choice to go to Waffle House when we decided to go.
All right. And were you planning to eat in the Waffle House or?
We had ordered to go to, Kayla actually went in to pick up the Waffle House that we ordered to go.
Okay. Where did y'all park when you got to the Waffle House?
We were parked in the back side of, the back part of the parking lot, like right in front of the door almost, but not in the parking spot in front, but the second row of parking spaces.
The second row of parking spaces. And did you back into that parking space?
Yes, sir.
All right. Who was driving at that time?
Kayla was the one that backed in the parking space and went inside the Waffle House.
All right. What did you and Alexis do when Kayla walked in?
We were sitting in the car talking.
All right. Did you see this goldish brownish truck pull in and park in the handicap space right in front of the
Yes, sir,
Waffle
I
House?
did.
And was there anything odd about it?
Yeah, when he pulled in, it was very aggressive. Was driving just irate when he was pulling in.
Did you notice it at the time?
Yeah, I noticed it at the time.
Did y'all talk about it at the time?
Nah, we didn't talk about it. We were talking about something else, but I noticed how he pulled in.
All right. Did the driver of that truck get out immediately
No.
upon parking? How long do you think the driver sat in the car before he got out?
I'm really not sure as far as the time frame is, how long he sat in the car, but it wasn't immediate that he got out. He sat in the car for a moment before he got out.
Could you tell what, if anything, he was doing inside the truck?
I couldn't see inside of the vehicle.
All right. At some point, did you see that driver of that truck get out of the car?
Yes, sir.
And what did you see when that happened?
I saw him get outside of the vehicle. It looked like he had something in his hand, might have been a cigarette or something, not sure. And then I saw him just stand there and lift the gun up and start to shoot.
Okay. What was he wearing, if anything? Did you notice that?
It was just a long coat, that's all I remember.
All right. Do you remember anything else about his clothing at all?
No, the only thing that I could see from where I was that he had a coat, like a long trench coat on. I couldn't see anything past the coat.
Okay. At what point did you notice that he had a gun?
When he raised it up after, like I saw him raise the gun up and he took the shot and I watched the whole thing. It's kind of,
Okay. Can you describe the gun in any way? Was it a little handgun? Was it a big gun?
It was just a longer gun. It was like, I don't know what kind of gun. I'm not really familiar with them, but it was a big gun and he raised it up and started shooting.
Can you demonstrate for the jury how he raised it up and started shooting?
Yeah, it was just a simple, just like casually just raised the gun up. It was just raised it up and the first shot went off.
Okay. Did you see the direction he was shooting?
The way he was standing, he was like at an angle of the door when he raised the gun. I'm not sure as far as like where the gunshot went. I was more so paying attention to the gun.
All right. Did you see who he was shooting at?
Not particularly the person who he was shooting at. All I saw was him shooting. I was paying more attention to him than the people he was shooting at.
Okay. Did you see either of the men fall to the ground after he shot
Yes,
them?
I did.
Were you able to see both men as they
Yes.
fell to the ground?
Yes, sir.
What did he do after he got done shooting those men?
He walked inside of the Waffle House and started shooting the people in the booth. And he continued to walk around to shoot people as he walked through the front part of where they have the bar, and he walked that way.
All right, so he walks in the entryway to the Waffle House, right? And were you, from where y'all were parked, could you see in through that glass?
Yes, sir. I could see through the glass.
All right. Did he start shooting toward his right or toward his left when he walked in there?
When he walked in the booth, it was people sitting in the booth to the right side of him when he walked in.
Okay. After he got done shooting at those folks, what did he do?
He continued to walk past. It was the way that the Waffle House was. He continued to walk past the bar area to shoot, and then he came back.
All right, so he shot to his right, and then he took a few steps to his left and was shooting in that direction as well?
I wouldn't say to the left. I'm not pretty sure as far as where his steps were taken. I really wasn't paying attention to
toward the
steps.
bar area?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then what did he do after he got done shooting in that direction?
He came back around towards it was like walking towards the entrance area where him and James Shaw began to fight over the gun.
Were you able to see Travis Reinking and James Shaw actually get into their fight?
Yes, I did not see the first initial punch where he hit him, but I did see them tussling over the gun. Right. And like fighting each other, and I watched him run out of the Waffle House.
All right. Were you able to see when the two men got the gun over their head?
Yes, sir.
And did you see when the gun was thrown back toward
over the counter? Yes, sir.
All right. After the gun was thrown over the counter, what did those two men continue to fight?
A little bit. They tussled a little before he ran out.
Okay. And when you say he ran out, who ran out?
Travis.
Okay. So after that tussle with James Shaw, Travis Reinking was now back outside of the Waffle House. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you said when he ran away, what did he do?
When he ran away towards the left side of the Waffle House, going towards the left. And we were still sitting there, and Kayla, she ran out. Probably like a few minutes after he ran out, Kayla ran out as well, and she got in the car and we drove off. As we were driving off, we saw him running down the street in the grass area, like not too far off the road.
All right. Before even as he was running down the road and before Kayla was able to run out to you, what did you do? Did you get on the phone with him?
I was on the phone the entire time. When he made the first shot, I believe I called the dispatch like as soon as he made the first shot, because it was shocking at first.
And when you say call dispatch, you mean call 911?
911, yes, sorry, yeah.
So you called 911. As soon as you first shot, you're calling 911.
Yeah, it was probably like a few seconds after, because I was in shock a little bit. But once I realized like what was really going on and it was real, I called 911, and I stayed on the phone with 911 until the police came at the gas station.
Okay. So when Kayla runs out, you're still on the phone with 911?
Yes, sir.
And what did Kayla do when she got out and got back to the car?
She drove off.
All right. So now it's still you, Kayla, and Alexis in the car, and Kayla's driving off, and you're still on 911?
Yes, sir.
All right. As you drove off, what direction did you go?
When we came out of the parking lot, we went to the left because we went through the light, headed towards the Shell station down the street from the Waffle House.
And did you, from the time you left the parking lot, did you see Travis Reinking again?
Yes.
Where did you see him?
We saw him probably, it was few yards from the Shell station where I saw him, because I remember telling the dispatch lady that he was between the wooded area right before you got to the Shell station. So I saw him running in that direction.
All right. How far away from the Waffle House was that?
To be honest, I'm not really sure. It's not that far. It's probably like a couple of minutes down from the Waffle House.
A few hundred yards, maybe?
Yeah.
And at that point was how long from the time that you'd seen him run out of the Waffle House? A minute or two? Longer? Less?
To be honest with you, I can't remember. Time really wasn't, everything was moving pretty fast at that time.
Okay.
But it wasn't far after, like, we left out.
All right. When you got to the gas station, what did y'all do?
We waited there for an officer. The lady said that the ambulance and the officer would be coming, and we waited there for somebody to eventually come.
And did you stay there in the parking lot of that gas station until police came?
Yes, sir.
And then you cooperated with the police at that point and told them everything that you saw?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was Kayla injured when she got back in the car?
We were unsure. That's the only reason we stopped at the gas station, is because we didn't know if she had got hit or not. I did see blood was on her, and she had scratches and stuff, but we weren't sure if she had been hit or not.
Okay, great. And did all this happen in Nashville, Davidson County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just a second, Judge. We got it. All right. Those are my questions, Judge.
1 second. No question.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may sit down.
Hello. Hello, Ms. Perez. Could you please state your full name for the record?
It's Patricia Perez, P-A-T-R-I-C-I-A, last name Perez, P-E-R-E-Z.
And are you the mother of Joe Perez Jr.?
Yes.
Is that your only son?
No, I have 2 older sons as well.
And I'm going to ask that this witness be handed an item. Ms. Perez, do you recognize the item that's just been handed to you?
Yeah.
And can you describe that photograph?
This is taken at his second cousin's birth. It was a picture that was taken. I used to call him Kim K. He used to love to take photographs. He was a selfie king.
And is that a photograph of your son, Joe Perez Jr.?
Yes, it is.
And Your Honor, at this time I would ask permission to publish that photograph and also ask that it be introduced as the next numbered exhibit, which I believe is number 9.
Correct.
Ms. Perez, what is your son's birthday?
September 22nd, 1997.
And in April of 2018, how old was your son?
He was 20 years old.
And how long had he been living in Nashville?
Exactly 4 months. His brother came up here to open up a business. His brother's business expanded. He wanted family. So we were all going to make the move to Nashville together. But he asked Joey, to come down first because the business was getting bigger. So Joey decided to go ahead and come with his brother at that time. So I drove him down here to Nashville on December 22nd of 2017.
And did your son, did he have a car that he drove when he lived in Nashville?
Yeah, he had a 2007 Honda Civic. Like I said, I drove him down here just to make sure that he got here safe. That was one of the things that we agreed on, and I flew home. And yeah.
And after April 22nd of 2018, did you see his car again?
Yeah, on the day the incident, my mother called me to inform me that Joey hadn't made it home, and she had witnessed something on the TV, and she was worried, and she wanted me to call Joey because Joey always answered me. I called, he didn't answer, I didn't get anything, and then I asked my mother to wake up my son and tell my son to go to his cousin's house, but I ended up pinging Joey's phone, and it pinged at the Waffle House. That's where I sent his brother to, his brother found out. I flew out next day.
Ms. Perez, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I need to ask you specifically about the car.
Okay, so
when you saw the car again, was there anything wrong with it?
Yes, the flashers were on, and when I went with the key to go and drive the car, we were going to drive the car back to my son's house. He had a flat.
So he had a flat tire on it?
He had a flat tire on the front driver's side.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Perez. I don't have any other questions.
No question.
Ms. Perez, you make some comments.
Ma'am, could you tell us your name, please, and spell your first and last name for us?
My name is Blanche Anderson. First name Blanche, B-L-A-N-C-H. Last name Anderson, A-N-D-E-R-S-O-N.
Miss Anderson, did you know Torian Sunderland during his lifetime?
Yes, I did.
And are you related to him?
Yes, I'm his aunt.
And on his mother's or father's side?
Mother's side.
So, were you there around, knowing him from birth?
Known him from the day he was born. I live in Illinois. I came down and spent the first 2 weeks of his life with my sister when he was born.
And did you stay in touch with him throughout his lifetime?
He lived with me a couple of years in Illinois, so we were very close.
Ms. Anderson, I'm going to ask the court officer to take a photograph up to you that counsel has seen approved. Being handed a photograph, do you recognize the person in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And who is that?
This is Torian.
And I would ask that be, I believe, exhibit number 10, Your Honor.
All right.
I know it gets a little awkward getting the TV back and forth, but if we could.
My staff can use the exercise. Been all day. He needs to be working.
Ms. Anderson, looks like a picture of a very happy young man.
He was. He had a beautiful smile.
Did you know what he was doing for a living?
Torian loved to cook from a little boy up. And he was a chef at the Waffle House.
Did he enjoy his work?
He loved his work. He's always loved cooking, and he wanted to be a chef one day.
Do you know approximately about how long he had been working at the Waffle House before this incident?
Tori started working at the Waffle House February 17th of 2016.
And do you know how long he had been at this particular Waffle House?
At this particular Waffle House, he had just transferred down there on February of 2018.
So was it a relatively new Waffle House?
Relatively new, and he transferred there to be closer to home. He lived about 3 blocks from there.
When was the last time you saw Torian alive?
The last time I saw him, I came down for Thanksgiving, and I helped him cook a Thanksgiving dinner. That was the Thanksgiving before the year he was killed.
And are his mother and father here in the courtroom today?
Yes, they are.
I ask you, though, to
Yes, they asked me to speak
this.
for Tori.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
No question.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so we are, I know, so sad, absolutely so sad. All right, so we're gonna wrap up there. We're gonna leave it off with that heartbreaking testimony from some of the family members of the victims. Tomorrow we're gonna dive into some more testimony surrounding the case. Yeah, it's been a tough one with some of these people taking the stand today. So again, tomorrow we'll start at 1 p.m. EST, and I hope to see everyone there. I super appreciate everyone's amazing support today and engagement as well. And I love always hearing everyone's insights. And a special shout out for all the YouTube members today. Super appreciate your continued support as well. So I will see you guys tomorrow around 1 p.m. EST.